The Physical Media Advocate is a monthly-ish zine curated by Ryan Verrill, the mind behind the Disc Connected. Each issue channels the spirit of the underground zines of the 80s and 90s, offering a fresh, handcrafted deep dive into the world of physical media. Inside every edition, you'll find updates on upcoming releases, film appreciation and analysis, curated lists from industry professionals, reviews, analytical essays, and fun contributions from boutique Blu-ray labels and creators throughout the hobby. You'll even find original games, contests, and plenty of surprises. I've had the privilege of contributing to this magazine twice. First in issue 21 with the cover story, Kill the Actor, an exploration of the legacy of the Burt Reynolds classic, The Longest Yard. And again in issue 24 from Aldovia with Love, my heartfelt appreciation of Netflix Christmas films. Pick up the Physical Media Advocate today at brick-and-mortar shops like CD Trader, and you can also grab it at Videotech in Los Angeles, Scarecrow Video in Seattle, and Videodrome in Atlanta. Or order your copy today on Amazon, available worldwide.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, then why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shameless Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Shameless Picture Show. I am your host, Michael Viers, and today I am being joined by... Jason, you're so many things, but I would say more than anything, you feel like my cinema soulmate in a lot of ways. You're a podcaster, you're a comedian, you're a photographer. You do pretty much whatever you need to do, and you follow the wind wherever it takes you. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I asked you to pod me like one of your French girls, and that's what you've been doing, and I thank you. I'm doing pretty good. Thinking about the hubris of man.
Of course.
Thinking about flying too close to the sun. Thinking about my father issues and how I can put them in an adaptation where it doesn't belong. You know?
Yeah. I feel
I'm doing good.
I feel like you're burying the lead a little bit here.
Oh. That's the point. That's my strategy. I like to bury the lead and then dig the lead back up, and then connect it to a Rube Goldberg machine of contraptions to bring it back.
That makes sense. So before I'm gonna tease the audience just a tiny bit more before we move on to the topic. Jason, have you watched anything interesting lately? I never asked this question of anyone, but since we already had a preamble, I feel like I just need to throw some fucking curveballs.
Okay. Wow.
I know it's a big question because you're like me and you're always watching something.
What have I watched recently? Let's see. Let's take a look at the old list here.
So far, December has been relatively underwhelming with a couple. There's been some big highlights. It's almost like a fucking W shape of there's a high, some lows, and then it goes back up again and.
Are you talking about with your letterboxd?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at my my Plex list. I'll tell you what. I've been trying to watch Stranger Things. I've been like, it's ending. I should watch Stranger Things. Finally, I should sit down and I should really watch this show. And I don't like this show.
How far are you?
I just don't. I wasn't too amused by it when it came out because I'm already chronically culturally literate, and so watching Ready Player One type of thing that's like, and I like everything that it was, I appreciated what it was going for, and I think it hit it really hard at the time.
Yeah.
But we've already gone through a bunch of incarnations of that like nostalgic 80s thing by the time we've
Yeah.
gotten to here. And in 2025, I just don't care. I don't care.
I'm
And
not terribly.
I want to care.
Yeah, I'm not terribly excited. Like, I'm gonna watch this season because it's the last one. But I just feel like if they would have just kept going with regular seasons, because like I think I don't know. I think the show would have been better. But all this time in between seasons and all this build up and all these weird decisions. There's only been one show that's been able to release a season every couple years, and it works out in their favor, and that's the Venture Brothers. Rest in peace.
I mean, that's just such a completely different kind of, like, you can do like Futurama's been doing that for 30 years now, where they just like they show up, they do a couple of seasons, and then disappear for 15 years, like or 5 years, 5 to 6 years, and they come back, and we're like, this is still as good as it was. Let's see, what else was I trying to? I watched Before the Devil Knows You're Dead for the first time in a while. I've been going back to. I've been realizing that there's not a movie that I can go back to and watch over the last 20 years that did not have, like before 2014, that did not have Philip Seymour Hoffman in it.
Yeah, he was on a run for a while there.
Sidney, I think that was Sidney Lumet's. Is Sidney Lumet or Lumet?
I've always pronounced it Lumet, but I don't know if maybe it's Lumet. I'm not too sure.
Sidney Looms. I think it was his last movie.
Yeah.
Him and Ethan Hawke, just exquisite trash.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else have I been? I saw Tron Ares
Ugh.
the other day. I don't think I've
heard...
watched a movie in a long time where the difference in quality between the music that was playing and the scene it was playing over was like destabilizing.
Yeah, I like Tron. I liked the second Tron. I can't think of what it's called at the moment. It's subtitle. I just had no interest in Tron Ares. And for me, I'm not a big enough Nine Inch Nail fan that's enough to get me in the theater.
If I was baked, this thing would, like, if you were to like just eat a couple of edibles and
But isn't that your normal state?
No. Not for a while.
Okay.
And like put it on your system. I think it'd be worth it to just watch just once. But it's not good.
Yeah, like I'm sure at some point I will see it. It wasn't on my list of things that I needed to go out the way for. You know what I mean?
It doesn't. Yeah. I think in 1998 it would have been a different story. A movie like that could come out in 1998. That's just kind of okay. It's just like an okay Disney sequel to something.
Mm-hmm.
I think our expectations for things are too high.
Yeah, and I don't think that's even just the audience. I also feel like studio executives expect too much out of every movie they release. Not everything is going to fucking do Avatar numbers, and they want them to.
That's also right. Like, movies just aren't fun anymore.
No.
In a way that they used to be fun. Like, online discourse is either disastrous interpretations of pretty simple to understand movies, or constant conversations about how this movie needs to make this much money and this money didn't make that much money, and money.
When did we become so box office obsessed? This is what I want to know. Like, I've never cared about the box office. I will sometimes in a very tertiary way discuss it on this show because there's some historical context behind that. But I'm also looking back at movies. I don't care what movies are making now.
The deepest I see people go,
mm-hmm.
the most aggressive I've seen in terms of discourse about numbers is like, what is left of the Snyder cult? And maybe this is just my algorithm fucking with me.
Could be.
But like, it just this like Superman flopped and James Gunn isn't going to control of DC anymore because it didn't make enough money. And if you compare how much money Man of Steel made with how much money Superman made, it like clearly flopped. It like floppity flopped. And James Gunn is going to get fired and Snyderverse is going to be back. Zack Snyder's going to be back and he's going to get to complete his Justice League is like 3 and 4 because like Ben Affleck is like super eager to come back and like they're all just like waiting by the phones, waiting for Zack.
I'm getting tired.
New Superman bombed. And like one battle after another that's super woke like Antifa movie that also bombed.
Yeah, and that's the side of film culture that I've never really enjoyed or liked to engage with. I also feel like this discussion is becoming a whole different discussion, and I think that's great. That's a part of film culture I've never really gotten behind, and I could never really engage with. But then on top of that, I also feel like film culture is in a fucking bubble because some point in the early 2000s, maybe even earlier than that, people decided that film critics were evil and that they're all being paid and they shouldn't listen to them. So then no one ever reads about, other differing opinions about film, and they're just stuck in a bubble, and, they'll rate a movie 1 star because they didn't understand it. Instead of trying to understand it, they just sit there like with their fucking fingers up their ass and don't learn anything about it. And I just think film is the most accessible art form, but it's the one that most people are completely idiots when it comes to. Like, the fact that there are just people who spend their time talking about the plot holes in movies when most of them don't even understand what a plot hole is. They're just confused by something. They think it's a plot hole. It's all these aspects are just things about film culture that I fucking hate. This is the most negative I've been on this show in a while.
Well, I mean, it's all. I think it's all leading to the same place, because these are all peripheral issues with movie making, movie watching, distribution, movie watching culture as a whole right now, which I think is best personified in what we're talking about today, in terms of like how one of the most visionary filmmakers alive ended up, releasing a movie barely in theaters, but on Netflix. Somebody for whom an event would be held in their honor, like weekends mapped out for their movies, is now just being dropped on Netflix and maybe might get a few awards. And then that's how we absorb things now. A thing is dropped, we respond to it immediately. We have about 3 days worth of discourse. And then we argue with the people who we're having the discourse with, whether it's numbers or it's foundational themes. And then we move on to the very next thing instead of having something that like lasts. I think that the things that people complain about with Avatar are actually affecting all of cinema. We have short memories for things that we shouldn't have short memories about. We used to be like, we remember, here I go. We remember what it was like to go to the movies to see like this handful of movies that we can name. But as we get older and we're just inundated with data at every turn and watching and absorbing and taking with every minute of every fucking day, we're not forming new hormonal memories with the things that we're consuming. We're consuming them to talk about them and then forget about them completely. And then if we have an opinion about it, maybe we share that opinion, then we go online, then we see this person who has the opposite opinion, then we argue with this person that we're not arguing with. You know what I mean? Like, and then we just absorb a bunch of shit about it, and then we just move on.
Yeah.
But I don't remember a single movie I've seen in the last 5 to 10 years that I remember like I remember seeing Seven, that I remember seeing Titanic, or something even as simplistic slop as Transformers. And I don't know if it's because of the death of my greatest boogeyman, the monoculture. But yeah, it's just we don't have a memory for what we consume anymore, and it affects our ability to like really. I think I said this about One Battle After Another. I think that was a really special film.
Yeah, we saw that together.
The first movie that felt like a movie, like cinema, in a long time, and I'm hoping it affects people the same way that like. And I feel like Sinners and Weapons, honestly, and One Battle After Another are kind of all three of the genres that someone right now who just turned 13 and is getting into movies, will quote the same way that we talk about 1999. They're going to talk about 2025 in that way, because this was a banger year for those kinds of movies.
Yeah.
If you are, if it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, as long as you love. Okay, sorry. You had a movie this year that spoke to you, and I don't think we get that a lot.
Yeah. And honestly, that's the reason. So I recently had to create my top 10 for RogerEbert.com. And the top 5 was easy because it's the 5 films that spoke to me the most, that I think will have the staying power in my mind. And one of which we're not going to agree on. But I'll give everyone a teaser here. My top 5 for the year is One Battle After Another, Sinners, Frankenstein, Weapons, and The Life of Chuck. It's 5 films that really stuck with me in a way that I think I'm going to still be thinking about them years down the road. Don't get me wrong. I loved, The Toxic Avenger.
But that wasn't worthy of the list.
No.
That is half of a great movie and half of a terrible film.
I had a fantastic time with it. It got an honorable mention, but it's not going to stick with me.
You know what I love about it, though? It's not one of those movies that starts strong and ends poorly. All the poor spots are like randomly scattered throughout the great parts in a very strategic fashion, and it's nice because you barely notice them.
Yeah,
they're there, and it's like, why are we shooting it in this alleyway again? But then the next scene clearly had like $100,000 pumped into it. I love that movie so much.
I did too. And like I said, it's worth mentioning, but I don't think I haven't thought about it the way I've thought about Weapons or The Life of Chuck, which I know is also a polarizing film, but it profoundly moved me. But I think this is a perfect time to kind of transition into a topic that we're going to be discussing today. So, Jason, on the show, usually the 2 modes the show has is we either do a deep dive or I do an interview with someone. It's not often that I pick a fucking topic, but I've done a couple of them this year. Maybe this is me growing and trying to do different things. But this year, like it or hate it, one could argue that one of the most talked about films to come out was a little film directed by Guillermo del Toro called Frankenstein. And the story of Frankenstein and its various adaptations is a story that it sounds like both of you and I are both passionate about. I remember reading Frankenstein at a relatively young age. It really stuck with me. The Bride of Frankenstein is in my top 5 movies of all time. And I eat up any version of that story that I can find, but it sounds like you had wanted to do a much larger conversation about Frankenstein adaptations in general. And walk me through why you want to do this episode.
Maybe not all adaptations. Although I do think that there is a common thread for adaptations that that we can get into. But mostly I thought the differences between, because I was a fan of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Me too.
I was a fan of Young Frankenstein.
Me too.
I was an unfortunate watcher of I, Frankenstein. I've seen a lot of Frankenstein adaptations, and I feel like I'm fascinated by the monster cycle in this. Kind of go like vampires, wolves, vampires, Frankenstein, zombies, Frankensteins, Dracula, Wolfman, Dracula, Dr. Jekyll, Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein. I feel like we go through this every 15 years or so.
Yeah.
And I feel like Frankenstein is very easy to. We have another one coming out next year.
Yeah, the Maggie Gyllenhaal one.
The Bride.
Yeah.
I just think it's a fascinating jumping off point for people trying to like retrofit their own traumatic narratives onto. I guess my hot take is I don't find a lot of them very interesting.
Okay.
Because I think that it's kind of hard to convey. You got to do a lot of filling in the the blanks when you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to make a big budget Frankenstein movie, and you got to give people motivations that are more narratively interesting. Um, and I think that that's it. That's it. I think comparing them, especially with like auteur's visions for what that text is saying or how they're using it to deal with their own issues is interesting.
Yeah, and for me, so like I said, I see a lot of these adaptations. Kind of like you, I don't feel like a lot of them are all that memorable, though all that interesting. Obviously we have the James Whale version. While not the most accurate to the book, is just a fucking piece of iconic pop culture at this point. Hammer had their version of Frankenstein. Um, and honestly, until Guillermo del Toro set out to make it, I was kind of under the assumption that, well, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein that Kenneth Branagh directed is probably going to be, for my money, the version of that story that I like the best. Like, I saw other ones. Larry Fessenden did a kind of interesting Frankenstein adaptation a couple years ago called Depraved that was trying to use the story of Frankenstein as a allegory for veterans coming home from war at the time. I like quite a bit when people take the themes of Frankenstein and run with it, like Tim Burton did twice with Edward Scissorhands, or even Frankenweenie. I find myself enjoying those, or say something like Reanimator. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I feel like, based on the conversation we've had with Guillermo del Toro's film coming out, that I might have enjoyed this movie more than you did.
Oh, by far. Um, I
And
I did not.
I should
I didn't
also
like it.
say too, I went in extremely biased towards it.
How so?
Uh, I don't think I've disliked any of Guillermo del Toro's films thus far, and uh, enjoy the worldview that he has within his films. So I knew we weren't going to get an 100% accurate adaptation of Frankenstein. We're going to get Frankenstein viewed through the lens of Guillermo del Toro. So I went in kind of having a pretty good feeling that I was going to enjoy it. Obviously, anything could happen, but I just really enjoy the films that he puts out.
That made so everything that you're saying accurate, except I was the opposite. I don't think that he's made a bad movie. He's made less interesting movies, but they're always visually dynamic. And this was the first time I watched a Del Toro movie where I felt like it was watching somebody who was ripping him off.
Mm.
I remember I was
Continue.
just sitting there. I cannot believe that Netflix managed to overlay one of the most visually interesting directors with their kind of weird flat thing that they infect all of their movies with. It's so weird how all of them have the same kind of weird sheen. But I saw it in this, and that's the least of my problems with it. But I did not enjoy it. I I felt like I was watching. Now that's what I call Guillermo del Toro Volume 17, as opposed to watching a brave new vision from somebody who um is known for creating those. Um I've been a fan, like I've had stock in him for a long time. I'm not saying that. I want to make something clear here. This is not a I don't think this is a good Del Toro movie.
Mm.
I think compared to a lot of shit that comes out, it is still a eminently watchable film. I just think it fails on almost every level, except for a couple of great scenes, a couple of great performances, but I don't think it adds up to much.
What do you feel like it
But
failed on?
listen, I got to give it Jacob Elrodi. He's a sweetheart. He's setting new definitions for what masculinity means. Uh, you know, he's a great actor. I loved him in Priscilla. Um,
I told you you'd
this
like Priscilla.
I really enjoyed Priscilla. I will never watch it again.
That's fair.
That's the Sofia Coppola special. Wow, that was great. Never again. Darren Aronofsky's the same way. Wow, what a powerhouse. That will never be placed in my vision again. What was I saying?
You were talking about Jacob Elordi's.
Oh, I don't. He was doing his best, and he was really going for it. And I don't think he had a single thing to work with. I thought his makeup was bad. I thought it looked like
I will agree with that.
like a Tool video from the 90s.
The makeup was my least favorite version of Frankenstein, and then when he had the weird like Peter Steele hair, like the long hair, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're going with.
I didn't enjoy any of it. I thought that there was a lot of great scenes, but I thought the plotting, the third act was terrible. I don't really have much of an opinion about them forgiving each other and like moving on. Oh my god, I just think it's a lot of the dramatic tension from the plot itself is destroyed because everybody's just kind of like, you know what, I forgive you. You know what? It's all right, dude. I get it. You're under a lot of stress. I'm under a lot of stress. It's just hard to be. This is the male loneliness epidemic, and we are it. Sorry about your boat. I'm gonna get out of here.
Yeah, it is interesting. So, like I said, I didn't necessarily have the same problems you did, but I can view these films on a critical lens, and it is kind of interesting the way that that they choose. So, like, I never expect any adaptation to be a beat for beat adaptation, and I know that's what a lot of people want. I think that's very boring. I remember reading a quote from a screenwriter many years ago when I first started getting into screenwriting that says the job of writing an adaptation is not to get every element the exact same as it was in the book. It's to try to recreate the feelings that you or the audience had while reading the book. And that's always stuck out with me. And there's a lot of different emotions that run through the Book of Frankenstein, which is a book that I really enjoy. And it's interesting to kind of see what Guillermo del Toro was responding to or reading into when he read the book. And I say that is because I'm a big fan of Gothic horror. And I feel like Guillermo hit that mostly out of the park. I do have some qualms with some of the visual stylings of this film, but not enough that it hurt my enjoyment of it. But there's definitely a lot more warmth and love in this story than I can personally recall being in the story. And it really, I'd be interested to learn more about Del Toro's personal life to see what he is bringing into this, because
it definitely feels like that's what I mean by like you're retrofitting your own, whatever it is you're trying to go through onto a pretty thematically simple narrative. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing with Kenneth Branagh's as well. Kenneth Branagh was like at the top of his game. And I don't think that he quite understood the delicious irony of him playing Frankenstein. But that was a movie that was celebrated virility and genius and vision. Like he goes into that movie with his shirt off and his heart just spread for everyone to see. I mean, he blew up his marriage with that movie because he was just out there. He made Victor Frankenstein slutty, like just a bimbo for no reason. I love it.
This movie was so gooey too.
It was so gooey. It was so horny. It was so violent. It was so like tonally inconsistent because it was trying to like be this incredibly campy operatic masterpiece, but then it had Robert De Niro as the monster, which I think is a terrible miscast.
Yeah.
Because he's saying this, he's like speaking this poetry. and this is my problem with Frankenstein movies in general, is like it makes them either mutes, like dumb mutes, like Lenny's from Of Mice and Men, or it gives them the capacity to like plan and speak and learn, like he did in the books, or in the books, like it's a series in the book. But like Robert De Niro being like, I felt a love that you could never feel. It's super weird.
It is, and
Because
I think he's really trying in that movie, but it's a very weird casting.
And it's crazy to me when I go back, and I get it with him, and I get it with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like we got the same thing from these guys in every movie, and we were just glazing them. So, oh, Robert De Niro's the best. He's the greatest actor that's ever lived. And he does the same thing in almost every movie. It's just dialed a little up or down.
Mm-hmm.
We used to make things, is what I'm saying. Now we demand, like, oh, Glenn Powell's supposed to be a different person. Fuck that. Just let men cook. Yeah. Anyways, I like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, we took that seriously. Mm-hmm. Just this incredibly short slab of beef that takes 14 seconds to get out every line. We were like, this is our man. I love it. I was watching True Lies for like the 15th time since it's been up the other day. And under no circumstances would that man be taken seriously in the things that we asked of him.
Yeah, honestly, like
our suspension of disbelief was so profound.
So this is a little tangent before we get back to Frankenstein, but
Frankenstein.
The other day, Amanda and I were watching Jingle All the Way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting. We were talking about this. It's like when Arnold Schwarzenegger first came onto the map in terms of acting, people played within his strengths. He usually played, muscle-bound Austrian, whether it be a action hero or if he was going to do comedy, that was built into the plot. Something like Twins. Well, he was born on a fucking beautiful island and did nothing but read books and fucking lift weights. So,
right.
Yeah, they built him into the plot. What's so interesting, what they eventually tried to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger right before he pieced out and became governor, was they tried to make him into the everyman in a very interesting way that I don't like. You watch Jingle All the Way. It's still Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're putting him in baggier clothing to kind of hide his physique, but he's a mattress salesman. He doesn't have like a fucking protein powder business. He doesn't sell dumbbells. No, he's a mattress salesman, and they only make a comment about his physique once, because they want you to believe that he is just a suburban dad with that accent and that fucking body.
Well, that's what they, in his later career, was mostly spent with like suffering guys. Like End of Days was kind of the beginning of that. He did that movie where he had the zombie daughter. He did that movie where his daughter died because of an air traffic controller issue, and then he has to he would hunt him down. And he was like, yeah, he wants to be the everyman who's just going through it, And it's like, absolutely not, my guy.
Mm-hmm.
I lament, anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, Robert De Niro. Let's loop it back around to Frankenstein.
Let's do it.
It's just very funny, Robert De Niro playing the monster, because he's trying to speak eloquently and let Victor know that despite the horrors of his creation, that he was still capable of love and poetry and romance and feeling and emotion. And it's just coming out of Robert De Niro's face. And I'm just... It fits with the movie itself, but it doesn't make any sense. And I wish that the makeup from Kenneth Branagh's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, The Return, would have been the makeup they use. I don't understand the makeup choices in Del Toro's.
No, and that's my biggest takeaway from it. Because they made changes of the story. The one of the biggest changes is that they made Victor's backstory far more tragic. In the book, he had a good family. He had a good life. That
was the point.
Yeah. And it's also funny too that Del Toro changed that, because from everything that I've ever read about Del Toro's his upbringing, He had a good life. His dad won the lottery when he was a young age and pretty much gave him whatever he wanted. He described his house like a castle. So so then you have this privileged young wonderkin with a Super 8 camera making crazy movies. His parents allowing him to do whatever he wanted. You'd think that would be the version of Frankenstein that he would respond to. And instead he made it tragic. And maybe his childhood was tragic and we just don't know it, but yeah, that is the most interesting change out of this. That and just the baffling makeup.
I think that we all have our private storms that only the land that exists between us and our parents. You know that I mean? Like, from all appearances, it looks like he had a pleasant childhood. Parents were allowed him to do whatever he did. But what were the moments between him and his father that shaped him?
That's fair.
And we always have these private battles and private disagreements and private relationships with people that close to us. And, you carry that around forever. I mean, he's definitely a guy that's tried to reframe feeling like an outsider, feeling unloved, feeling an inescapable horror at being alive and feeling, and translating that to a variety of projects that have all been interesting. Even Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim is like, it could have just been a robots versus kaijus movie, and instead it's about how you can link up with somebody and share and use your collective trauma to heal through companionship well enough to put your fist through a giant monster's spleen. And so it's beautiful. It's all of his movies have this edge. Even Blade 2 has this real this gooey center of Blade relating to the lady vampire and them, having an understanding of the profound loneliness of their positions in their final moments. It's crazy. He infuses literally every one of his narratives with this thing. Which brings me back to this movie where I think it's expressed in a shallower manner than he usually does. I don't think it's a successful therapy session. And that's the thing, is like, I don't think it works. Maybe because I've already worked through my shit with my father. And this was the way that he did it.
Yeah.
And if he got something out of it, by all means, Del Toro, heal thyself. I beg of thee, do not listen to me. I'm not the man who got to make my dream movie after 30 years in the industry. Congratulations to him. And I'll deviate a little bit. I think as a pure, unadulterated vision of a person working through some shit, I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. As a Frankenstein movie, it fucking sucks. To me, I think that I'm baffled by a lot of the decision making in it. I'm baffled by a lot of the visuals in it. I don't understand a lot of the narrative choices, and I don't understand why it had to be a Frankenstein story. Because it feels like a stretch a lot of the time. So I'm kind of at odds how to feel about it. I think it's insane that it is on, especially like the Rolling Stone list. I think it's insane that Frankenstein is on there and Sinners isn't on there.
Sinners is not on their list? That's wild.
It is wild. It's wild. Now, this movie didn't hit. It didn't hit the way I wanted it to hit. I thought Mia Goth was absolutely wasted. That being said, it's never a waste to use Mia Goth.
Yeah. So for me, I just had, and maybe it's just my own unresolved feelings of my father, which, my father was a good person and he was a good person for me. I just lost him at a very formative time in my life. So I was profoundly moved by Frankenstein. But I will also say I'm an easy target when it comes to father stories. That is just I have never cried more in my life than watching How to Train Your Dragon 2, let me tell you.
Oh,
painful amount of crying.
okay. All right.
And I
You
watched
just
it on Father's Day, which
You're
did
making
not
me
help.
feel like a psychopath. Actually.
Um,
Okay, no, continue. Yeah.
So, like, I'm an easy target. I already like Del Toro's worldview. I have my own daddy issues in that way, and it just worked on me. It's not to say that it's not without flaw. Um, because despite it making my top films of the year, I don't expect anyone else to feel the way that I did, and it's not to say that I don't have my own problems with it. Let's be candid. Things that I don't feel like worked, or I shouldn't say that didn't necessarily didn't work. I just don't understand his choice for, and these are also things that did not necessarily ruin the movie for me. Let's first talk about, Victor Frankenstein as a character. He gets, he's going to be known for creating life. But he also gets no credit for apparently creating light bulbs, because he had a lot of blinking lights for a time that there was no real indoor electricity. I feel like Christoph Waltz was just hired to come in and be Christoph Waltz. I don't really necessarily feel like his role was needed at all. And I like Christoph Waltz. Just don't feel like he was needed in this movie. I really don't like the design of Frankenstein. And then, for my biggest complaint about this film, is there did not need to be so much goddamn CGI in this movie. I feel like it for Del Toro's viewpoint and the way that he doesn't always make his films the way that he talks about how he makes his films. And I had the same problem when I saw Nosferatu. I feel like both films were going for a specific style and a look, and then we are just riddled with poor day for night and digital backgrounds, and we have two filmmakers that talk about wanting to make films a certain way, but they didn't.
What they mean is boring. We need to have one of these days. We're gonna have a conversation about Robert Eggers. I'm very on the fence about that guy. Nosferatu was snoozy. What a snoozy, beautiful movie. Like, I've already seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, bro. You didn't need to give it sleeping pills.
Yeah.
That's how I felt watching that. I was like, I remember this when it was at 1.50 speed.
Honestly, and I gotta say, like, one of the things that impressed me about Frankenstein over Nosferatu was like, holy shit, you can give gothic horror films a color palette? Who would have fucking thought?
I mean, we've had some pretty decent gothic horror over the last, like, speaking of wolves, remember Wolf? Or The Wolf Man with Benicio del Toro. Those are two movies that, like, The Wolf Man's the most recent one, like super gothy kind of horror and shot really well. Beautiful movie, narratively messy, but that's a beautiful movie. That's very much in the same vein as Frankenstein, actually. I hadn't occurred to me till now. That's how the brain works. Very much like a dealing with your daddy issues, and then like, oh, but who's the real monster?
Well, but that is the theme of the Wolfman. Like, that is one of the themes of the Wolfman was Lawrence Talbot trying to get his father's approval.
Right.
So that makes sense.
I just it's the same plot. It was like if I make it in the book, and correct me if I'm wrong out there in the comments. I'm not, but correct me if I am. Victor is just an arrogant shitbag. Yeah. Same thing with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with Kenneth Branagh. He's just Kanye. He's the Kanye of medical students. He's just out here like, I'm the best there ever was, the best there ever will be. You can't touch this. I'm gonna create life, and it's gonna be great. Yeah. Oh, it's not great. Yep. I don't want any credit for this.
Yeah, pretty much. He's young, dumb, full of cum, and wants to play God, and he's like, oh shit, Why did anyone warn me that this was a bad idea?
Except for everybody warned you it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
I.
So what do you look for in a Frankenstein adaptation then?
I was just thinking about the aesthetics of the lab just then, where I was like, I cannot believe the difference in tone. If you want the real difference in what movie making is what we're accomplishing and how we're producing films now, you need only look at Del Toro's Frankenstein with its couple $100 million budget and its backing of the largest media company in the world, and look at something like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The lab scenes in the 1995 movie are more beautiful, are a lot better looking because everything's practical. Everything's got a practical, visceral, tactile feel to it. It doesn't look like any of the labs you've ever seen in any of the films
just
ever.
in some fucking
Now, the
attic
huge
that he rents
balloons,
out.
huge
Yeah.
he put him inside a water tube, and he was using electric eels.
Yeah, the electric eels was a really interesting addition.
It's an inspired rendition from a guy who had made his bones on inspired adaptations of things. Because this dude was just coming off a run of like 4 Shakespeare adaptations in a row. Kenneth Branagh was just the guy, and everything just has this real tactile feel to it. You can tell when they kind of ran out of money. But still, they're like shooting on location in snowy mountains. They're building elaborate sets. The costuming is incredible. The lighting is incredible. It looks great. It's just a whole mess. But like this Frankenstein looks terrible. His usual wide angle custom, real sets shtick thing looks so fake in this. The lab is like any other lab that I've seen in various versions of this going back, decades, which is like, thing on top and a couple of tubes, and then there he is on the slab. And I just thought it was boring. I just thought everything from the motivation to the creation to the creature's meandering to his experience with the old man, I just thought it was all so boring. Filled with the most psychotic actors of a generation, and by making it boring, it was so strange to me. Yeah. I just thought the difference in tone and the difference in how those movies look is so staggering to me, because the one from 95 looks infinitely better than the one from 2025 with more money.
Yeah, I really do love the look of the 1995 version, and that's probably always going to be my favorite adaptation of that book.
Yeah, it's not good, but it is good. It's well produced.
Yeah.
And Bram Stoker's Dracula is the same way, which is why it exists in the first place. Bram Stoker's Dracula ain't good, but it is great in parts, and there's a lot going on there that's really fun to watch.
So, going back to a question I asked you just a little bit ago, what do you look for in a Frankenstein adaptation?
I don't even know. I don't even know anymore. I don't even think I like them.
Interesting.
I'm gonna be real. I feel like I've been tapped out. I watched. I like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein enough, and that might just be it for me. I mean, you brought up Edward Scissorhands. It never occurred to me that that's a Frankenstein myth. Frankenweenie was fine. Edward Scissorhands is a thing of wonder and rare genius. That's what I look for in a Frankenstein movie. The perfect storm of those things. I don't know. I can't think of a single, I didn't like Lisa Frankenstein either.
Oh, see, I did.
And see, I thought my problem with that was that they made the Frankenstein stupid. They didn't give him any agency, and they were trying to retrofit a thing that doesn't really fit with that narrative. And I thought it was quirky and cute, and it set out to do it. Diablo coded all over the place. But I'm not interested in what it was trying to say. And I don't know if I What do I look for in a Frankenstein movie?
Or I guess here's another question.
I feel
What
like
would
Mary
you-
Shelley's Frankenstein gave it to me.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say another way that I can phrase this question is, if you were tasked with adapting that book, and you don't necessarily have to make a faithful adaptation, what would you want to do differently that you have not gotten?
I turned
yet?
that down in a heartbeat. Unless I don't know that I would have. My issue would be, I think it's all been said. It's all been done. I feel like we've reached the natural conclusion of. I mean, I'm going to go support my girl Maggie Gyllenhaal, but she turned The Bride of Frankenstein into a Bonnie and Clyde story.
Yeah, it feels like Bonnie and Clyde in the Batman universe.
Fine, fine, cool, fine. You go right ahead. But like, that's the thing, is even if I was trying to think of something to joke about. What would be a funny thing I could do with Frankenstein? But here's the thing. As he's either a good co-star, as he is in Van Helsing, where they give him just enough characterization and a mix between like a very serious version and the old Hollywood version of it. I think his characterization of that is great. Or I was thinking of the Aaron Eckhart movie, I, Frankenstein, where again he plays like a comic book version of Frankenstein who is trying to stop like a demon invasion with sidekicks and weapons that he's specialized over a long career of being Frankenstein, the Avenger. Like, I don't know what I'm looking for from it because it's been stretched so thin. And if you know what, and here's the thing, I would assemble a writer's room. I would get like a bunch of dudes together. We get a bunch of dudes, a bunch of gals together. And at the end of the day, it's like monkeys writing on a typewriter. At some point, we're going to crank out creation has problem with creator. And it's going to be some version of that because it's always something like that. It's always somebody working out their goddamn parent issues or their issues with themselves and using the monster as their metaphor. And I don't know how you get out of that. Because I can guarantee you that The Bride is also going to include one of them trying to go back and get revenge on their creator. So I don't know how you escape the underlying foundation of what a Frankenstein movie is.
I think
Actually, you know what I'd make my Frankenstein? I'd say we're having a teacher shortage, and I've decided to use my former skills as a scientist, to build the perfect teacher for my underprivileged kids. Dangerous Frankensteins.
That's really funny, actually. I came.
There we go. We nailed it. So sorry, I'm not done. I need to make sure this is all on record so that when we pitch it to Universal or Paramount's gonna go for this now. Because we'll get Chris Tucker to play the teacher.
Okay.
No, Chris Pratt. Sorry, I get my Chris's mixed up.
About to say that's two very different Chris's.
Anyways, continue.
I had an idea a couple years ago that I wanted to kind of play with the trend of every monster needing to be sexy, and I wanted to essentially do like a sexy Frankenstein movie about.
That's redundant.
I wanted to do a movie about high school and how a nerdy kid gets killed on a field trip, and the science teacher needs to bring him back so that way he doesn't have to explain to his kid's parents why he's dead, and then brings the kid back sexy. And that's the monster that he's created. He's created a fucking suave hornball. That was my idea.
American Frankenstein pie.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Franken Porkies. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, for me, everything you're saying is absolutely correct in most ways. But for some reason, the film still worked on me. I can't tell you why.
Talking about Frankenstein?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. That's why I can. Oh, let me pick up the mic here. I can be hard on the thing. I just didn't. It actively. It made me feel something, and it was kind of a strangely visceral feeling of disgust. But that's why art rules.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be clear. Art rules because the thing that didn't affect me in any way, shape, or form change the trajectory of the evening that you watched it. And that is, I think Del Toro is a great filmmaker in that way. He gets you to feel something. And
Yeah,
I would rather feel the way I did after Frankenstein than the way I felt after watching Tron Ares.
that's fair. And for Frank, and it's also interesting to see what Frankenstein has done for Del Toro. This has been a dream project of Del Toro's for so long, and I almost wonder too if he put too much pressure on himself, or this, because if it's something you've been dreaming about since you're a kid, the chances of sticking that landing is really tough. But then he's even said that after he made this film, and I think this is probably a smart move, he said he doesn't know what else he has to say when it comes to monster movies. If you think about it, most of his monster movies have been kind of building up to this story anyways. And he said, well, now there's other things I want to do. I feel like he almost has this sadness that he's like, all right, I'm done with this.
Well, it's a strange feeling to reckon when you use art to reckon with your grief.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talented enough and you're smart enough about it, you can okay. I'm going to use myself as an example. It's very self-aggrandizing, but when my father died in 2022, it was destabilizing. As it's unbelievably destabilizing, and you go a little insane. Personally, I tried to hide the going insane. You try to get on with life, and it's very hard because you can't really convey it to people who aren't going through it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've described it before, the thing that I did where I ended up getting this box of ashes from him. He spilled all over me, and then I started taking him on tour and doing this whole thing where I would have his ashes on stage, and then I would do my set, and I'd be like, oh, I've got a special guest, and then I would do a whole thing about that. Everyone really got into it. And what was happening was, after every show, the audience, like, people would keep me there for much longer than I was usually at these things, because I stop and I thank everybody, because this is a career.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful for all of them, but this time people would keep me around to talk about their own experiences with this stuff, and it was great, and it was cathartic, and I was able to heal much faster, I think, than I would have had I didn't have the skill set to turn it into art. And so when you have something like this where you've been trying to deal with your familial issues for so long, and it's been building up inside of you for so long, because him and I had our issues, and we had just had a breakthrough before he died. And then I didn't get to continue that breakthrough through anything. I just got to heal from it through art. My narrative has been the foundation of my story the whole time, and now all of a sudden it was shifted completely. And so I imagine Del Toro is and that's just a really small example of that. A guy like Del Toro has been working through this stuff his entire career. You can see it in all of his things.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, and I must temper it with, I think it's his most shallow version of it, was just doing the straight Frankenstein rip. Because he's done it, I think, a version of this much better in the past. But he finally got to do the thing, to do the direct adaptation of the thing, and that's his dream job. He used it to make the thing that he always wanted to make. He used it to work with a company he wants to work with and have security and safety. He used it to get catharsis with his relationship with his father, his creator. He forgave him. The very driving force behind him that has been at the core of his narrative his entire creative career, it's now over. It's like a samurai finally getting revenge on the guy. It's like Killing Bill, finally. Where do you go from here? What more monsters can I use to dissect my life? I'm very curious to see what Del Toro does next, because he's been working through some shit his entire goddamn career, and he finally got it out of his system. Yeah. He can finally breathe for the first time.
Yeah, and
everything's a meadow on the other side of this thing, and I don't know if he's ever seen one.
Yeah, and it's interesting looking at his career, because when people think of Guillermo del Toro, they think, at least I believe they probably have a very specific image in their mind of what his films are like, very similar to say of a Tim Burton. Like there is the Del Toro style, there's the Tim Burton style, there's the Wes Anderson style. But if you look at Del Toro's career, it's been very strange. You know, the fact that he had a run of comic book movies that were very successful for him. You know, then he made something like Pacific Rim that feels like an adaptation, but it's completely out of his fucking dome.
That's what's yes. Continue.
And you know, then like when he wasn't able to make his he always wanted to make Creature from the Black Lagoon, never could. So he's like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna make Shape of Water and do a very weird Creature from the Black Lagoon. And so it's his career has been all over the place, or even something like Nightmare Alley, which I might be one of my favorites of his career. While it's got some of his staples, it doesn't necessarily always feel like a Guillermo del Toro film. So it's I'm curious to see what he has in his heart next.
Nightmare Alley is interesting because it feels almost the same. You know how when Steven Soderbergh, every now and then, he just likes to fuck around?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, I got some cameras and some money. Let's fuck around. Let's see what we can do with some different film techniques. And it's not always great, but it is always interesting. And Nightmare Alley feels that way. I love that movie. And the same way I love Crimson Peak, which is also not completely successful, but is one of the most rapturously beautiful films ever made.
I agree.
But that's the thing. I think that you've nailed what's wrong with Frankenstein. He tried to take one of his interesting narratives. He could have adapted Mobile Gundam probably, but he decided to do Pacific Rim, which is his, which is he did his own version of Hellboy.
Yeah, Mike Mignola has even said it's like the thing he loves so much about it is Guillermo's vision of Hellboy.
When we get all the way up to that was his Pinocchio. He made that Pinocchio a couple of years ago with the Pinocchio stuck in Stalin Russia or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Also super interesting. This is shockingly shallow.
Mm-hmm.
A shockingly shallow version of, because I was gonna say, like, it seems like when he's playing in his own sandbox, he's interesting, but he can play in other people's sandbox. I don't know if Frankenstein is an inherently interesting concept for film.
And that could be.
Because it's a lot of bombast and a lot of covering up a lot of holes here. And I think, this is just a generational thing. If I wasn't specifically the age that I am, I wouldn't be bringing it up so much. But Mary Shelley's Frankenstein pretty much nails it.
Mm-hmm.
It's stupid and profound, and it's confusing, and it's kind of the best adaptation you're going to get of the text, because the text, people add so much and they dance around in that sandbox, but I don't think it's interesting enough to keep doing it. I feel like we might have hit a dead end when it comes to Frankenstein stories. And I've seen better Del Toro. And I've seen better versions of this from Del Toro already.
Yeah. And I would even say the same thing. So while this film did make my top 10 of the year, that's me comparing it to other films that I saw this year. If I were to rank this amongst Del Toro's filmography, I don't think it would be as high, because I think he has been far more clever throughout his career.
I think that's a super fair thing to ask, and again, that's why art rules.
Mm-hmm.
It affected you. It's affected you long enough, for unexplainable reasons, that it's stuck with you long enough to get on your list.
Yeah.
And
like I said, I can have a critical eye about it, about things that I don't think necessarily work, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, sometimes those details don't matter when there's just a certain fucking vibe that you are on the wavelength of.
Exactly. I'm glad someone's financing his dreams. I
Especially because I thought there felt like there was a period of time where I didn't know if we were going to get anything new. For some reason, that gap between Hellboy 2 and Pacific Rim felt really fucking long. That was 5 years in between those, and usually he's making a film every 1 to 2 years. So a 5-year gap is a pretty long gap. So I'm also glad. I really wish we could have gotten his H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, because we don't have many good Lovecraft adaptations. But realistically, I'm hoping he is done with the adaptation part of his career, and he just goes to making. Because I think going back to Pacific Rim, I guess that is a movie that feels like it's adapted from source material, because he's pulling from things that he loves. He's pulling from kaiju films. He's pulling from mech anime, or even Crimson Peak. Crimson Peak feels like that could be like a Charlotte Bronte book, but no, it's something he just made up.
It has always been, and it's a very Rob Zombie in this way too. It's like it is the culture of his influences as filtered through his imagination, where everything is recognizable, just filtered through an incredibly vivid imagination, which is again why I don't think Frankenstein is that good, because I don't think that it seems like a very unimaginative take on a story like that from a guy who has taken familiar concepts and recontextualized them to such a degree that they leave me in shock and awe. It doesn't always come up anymore, but it was a sensation at the time, and it did win a bunch of awards. Pan's Labyrinth is one of the most astounding films ever produced by the hands of man.
Can I just say, so Pan's Labyrinth is a movie that had such a profound effect on me. I only saw it one time, and I could confidently say it's one of the greatest films I ever saw. And I haven't wanted to watch it again, just because I have this perfect imprinted memory of that film.
Mm-hmm. It's an astounding piece of work, and we've kind of been chasing the high of that kind of real. There's a meatiness, there's a thickness to his sets and what he was shooting during that time period that is not there anymore. And I don't know if that's the Netflixification of it, and I think that's that thing that I'm talking about, where it's like, this looks like a Del Toro, but like if someone was using a Del Toro filter.
It's almost like, and I do think Del Toro's more successful than the next example I'm going to give. It's almost like the Tim Burton of it all. Tim Burton can show up on a set and just say, make it look like my shit, and they'll make it look like his shit.
That's such a good point. I
feel like the difference, and like, not saying you need to be depressed to be an artist, but I know for Tim Burton, I feel like I think he got to a certain point and he's like, well, I'm doing okay. I'm happy now. And I'm curious to see if, because Del Toro's been also putting out these weird quotes about death, and he's thinking about his own death quite a bit more, and how he wants to retire from monsters. Like, channel these weird feelings you're feeling into something. That's what I want to see happen. And I also just feel like, so like Del Toro's the first, he's always goes up on a panel and talks about, the tactileness of movie making, but then just really loves, his CGI set extensions. Like,
it was so fake looking. That was, I mean, I don't want to keep trashing. I feel like I'm trying to. It just looks so fake. It's the Netflixification of things. And no matter who's making the movie, it all kind of looks fake. Even David Fincher's Netflix movies look like Netflix David Fincher movies. It's so weird, and I don't know how to describe it. But there's just like, it feels diluted, like a thin version of the thing that we're used to. And watching it and going, this is definitely a Netflix Del Toro movie. It's such a weird feeling, because when you think about something like Pan's Labyrinth with its elaborate, beautiful, visceral, thick sets
Yeah.
that you could reach out and like feel the moisture on, as opposed to the sound stages that we were clearly on in this thing. And because it was so tonally inconsistent, I noticed all of that stuff more. I wasn't enraptured. I noticed things because I was bored. Yeah, I don't know what's missing, but I don't think it's the Del Toro part of it that I think is the problem. I think there is a dilution across the board that is affecting. I mean, I would have said this a year ago, but after watching something like One Battle, I'm not going to shut the fuck up about this. I'm sorry. I am kind of a cliche when it comes to Paul Thomas Anderson, but the man, One Battle After Another, is real pure fucking cinema. And when I compare something like Frankenstein to that, which is unfair, so it's unfair to do that, but Del Toro used to make movies that looked as good as One Battle After Another does. And now he's not. And at this point in his career, he should be making things that are bigger, not smaller and shittier looking. And it's a weird place to be, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Brutalist. The Brutalist
fucking
cost
cinema.
The Brutalist cost maybe $10 million, and Brady Corbet has even said that like people have been reporting 10 million. He doesn't even think it was that high. That movie cost $10 million.
One of the most beautiful films of the century.
Exactly. That's a fraction of what most of these movies cost. And that is about on par for how much Netflix most. I'm not talking about like a Del Toro Netflix movie, but that's on par with what Netflix usually gives for their budgets for other filmmakers. And god damn, The Brutalist is one of the most stunning looking films that I've ever seen.
Well, this all is the thing we're circling around is there is no excuse for Frankenstein to look as bad as it does. There's no excuse for it to look as fake and bad as it does.
Yeah, like it's even though like I said once again, I liked it quite a bit more than you did. It's not my favorite movie in terms of cinematography for the year.
I mean, there's a lot of, and that's the thing is like there's a lot of, it's very. Yeah, it's like Del Toro light. It's like, well, there's a wide angle that's really beautiful, and that castle's really nice, and that dress is really nice, but there's just something different about it, and I just didn't. I didn't find it.
Yeah, but ultimately, what I will say,
I did not like it. Have I made that?
I guess my question for you was, would you give it a second chance?
I will. I always give something a second chance. I give it time to. Now that I've got it out of my system. Another thing is like, I'll go back to a movie when I respect it to even a certain degree, under a different context sometimes, even a movie that I've openly disliked, I'll just pop on. Maybe I wasn't in the right mood for it. Maybe it's not 2 a.m. and the edible hasn't kicked in. You know what I mean? Well, like I go through those things sometimes. I think I told you recently that like, I was, and we've talked about it on the cast. You've heard me ramble about it. You have it on record somewhere. I was very displeased. And I'm already only like a surface fan of the Deadpool movies, but I thought Deadpool and Wolverine was like the death of cinema. I was offended by its very presence. I thought that it was one of the poorer showings of last year. And I thought it was a death knell for like every genre it was trying to be a part of. I think that it was like peak Ryan Reynolds being annoying. And I was pissed off about what they did to Logan. Recently, and I carried that in my heart heavy for a very long time. Recently, I watched Logan, and I was like, "That was pretty good. That was pretty good." What would happen? Just what would happen if I just like watched Deadpool and Wolverine directly after it? I wonder what that's like. And I loved it. In the context of just having watched Logan, and then watching the immediate aftermath of that, it became this entirely different experience. And I appreciated it for what it was.
Well,
I still got my issues with it. My point is that I will always go back and give something a different chance in a different context. Listen, I'm not mad about Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I'm just disappointed. And I think that, through work and trust exercises, maybe some couples therapy, we can work through that and we can come together in the future and maybe work something out. Maybe I need another dad to die.
Just start collecting them.
Yeah, maybe I can rent a dad to die for me. Bring Brendan Fraser into the equation. Very curious to see his rental family.
I've been hearing great things about it. But one thing I want to touch on before we start wrapping up is something I think very key to what you just said that I don't think, going back to a rant we had at the beginning of this episode about how film culture has changed, you said something that none of people will take credit for. Sometimes you're just not in the right headspace for something. And that is okay. I have watched movies where it didn't click with me because I just wasn't in the right headspace for it. Something else was going on. I was distracted. And
I straight up didn't like Drive when I saw it. I straight up did not like that movie. And then I watched it again. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. How is a miracle like this possible? So yeah, sorry, continue.
No, but my point stands that sometimes I'll just have like an itch to rewatch something, and a complete different perspective can sometimes form, and that's great.
I think that that actually happened to me with La La Land recently. I did not like La La Land. I'm trying to work my way into a respectable opinion about Damien Chazelle. That I think that maybe he just had one good movie in him. But I enjoyed La La Land more this time around. I have to watch Babylon again, but I think Babylon's a giant pretentious piece of shit. But you disagree with me on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's one of the most divisive movies ever. And so I think that's fantastic. Well, that's good for you, man. I fucking hate that movie. You fucking love that movie. That's movies, baby.
Yeah.
And
that's
I think
that's what's interesting about our friend. We don't always agree, but we can talk about them.
I don't know. The feelings aren't as strong for Frankenstein. I just feel like Frankenstein could have been more. And I think that if he had outside financing and wasn't going through Netflix, it would have been more. And I think that my feelings about the production quality of Frankenstein have more to do with my problems with the in-house style of Netflix and how it kind of seeps into every creator who works through their platform's work. And it's very rare that a work of like the true vision of an auteur actually comes through. Because I think there is something about aligning yourself with them that makes your work kind of forgettable gruel. It's just forgettable gruel in your style. And it's a weird feeling to experience when you're watching a movie. You're like, that's a Del Toroism, but there's something slightly off about it, something watery about it. The dumplings aren't as thick. The broth is mostly water. Like there's something so off. And the makeup was the thing. The makeup looked so fucking stupid. It looked like the makeup from Beastly, which is this shitty teen Beauty and the Beast movie from like 2013.
See, I was thinking it felt very Prometheus.
It's very Prometheus, yeah. But it just if the scarring had been more visceral, had been more gruesome, had been more like the 95 movie, I think that the entire performance would have been far more convincing. I actually think that would have fixed the movie for me. I think that his journey at the old man's house is kind of weak, but I would have bought a lot more of his whatever he was doing had the makeup design just been different and less silly looking and less prosthetic looking. But I think that's a Netflixification. There's a shininess to everything. I don't know if he might have chosen that. That might be his whole thing. I don't want to. It's just a rare miss for me. But I think that I honestly feel that if it was made in a traditional way, like he was making movies when he was making Pan's Labyrinth, it would have been a completely different experience. I think we would have had a completely different movie.
I do agree. And maybe that's part of my thing too. Maybe I'm holding on to the Del Toro of it all, and I'm seeing it for what it could have been. I don't know. I haven't rewatched it since I saw it. I just had a very good theatrical experience of it.
I think that happens to a lot of directors though, because that happened to me with Edgar Wright. Like I like The Running Man, but I wouldn't say it's Edgar Wrighty a lot of the time. That's how I felt about Last Night in Soho as well. It's just like I want to like this because it's my guy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a lot of the things that I really enjoy about his work. And sometimes that can work for a director. Paul Thomas Anderson is one of them. I fucking loathe Licorice Pizza.
Yes,
I
you
did
do.
not enjoy Phantom Thread that much. Then he just decided to do this thing, and this thing is phenomenal. So it's that's a blessing and the curse of having a distinct style like Del Toro has. Like you can tell when you're watching a Del Toro movie, kind of in the same way you can tell when you're watching like a Verbinski movie or a Spielberg movie or a Michael Bay movie. I was watching Ambulance the other day. Now that's good trash. That's good. That's that good trash.
Yeah, you've been trying to get me to watch Ambulance for a while.
It's so dumb, and it is excellent.
Well, I'll tell you what. You throw a movie night, we'll watch Ambulance.
I gotta treat you like you're like my side piece or something, because like, well, Becky's gonna be going to Buffalo here in a couple of weeks. Maybe you can come over after she leaves. We can watch a few movies. Really, boys' night it up.
I'm down.
You always come whenever you come over. It's like as soon as she's leaving.
Yeah, it always feels very, especially because like I'm coming in the front door as she's leaving through the back.
Yeah, you're my sneaky movie bud.
Yeah, but hey, now I get out of work at 4:30, so
that actually works.
That works out very well.
I think that's like next weekend, so we can probably do that. Because I would love to watch Ambulance. And maybe we can do a sub episode of this where I will rewatch Frankenstein.
Oh.
Second opinions.
If we could figure out how to do it, it'd be fun to do a commentary track to Frankenstein.
I've been thinking about trying to figure out how to do that. I think we just gotta. We gotta do dual headphones, and then just have a mic feeding into a computer while we're watching it.
I'm down. Let's figure that out.
As long as we're not picking up the actual movie.
Yeah,
that would be fun. I actually think that I could easily set that up in here.
Let's plan for that.
Anyways, so the verdict so far is it felt to me like a childish version of the plot.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that like I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. That's gonna be my.
That's fair. All right, Jason. So I feel like we've kind of we've gotten everything that we're gonna get out of this topic. So where can the people find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Lemon Hill Studios. That's LMN Studios. You can also type my name in, Jason Hillman. Hey, if you're out there and you're like, hey, listen, I need someone to perform a miracle on me to make me see myself in a different way. I run a studio now, and I'm always looking for new people to experiment on.
Yeah, honestly, and I'll say, Jason, you've taken some of my favorite photos of myself ever. So
there we go. See, I didn't even pay him to say that.
No, if anything, I paid you.
Yeah, that's actually the more accurate way of putting that. So you can find me there. You can find me at the Dead-Eyed Millennial Film Club. I'll have new episodes going up on that soon, which is also on Instagram and on all your favorite podcast places. That's just me and my partner rambling on about random things we watched that we feel like we have a meaningful conversation about it. Basically, we just get angry after we watch something. We're like, we got to record this. That's it. You can find me everywhere. Just type in my name.
All right. At this point, everyone should know where to find me. I'm Michael_Viers or Shameless Picture Show on every form of social media. next episode is going to be our last episode of the season. It's going to be episode 199, where our annual Christmas episode. On this episode, we're not discussing any specific film. No, on this specific episode, me and the Shameless Picture Show co-creator Nick Richards, he's coming back for our Christmas episode, and we're discussing Christmas movies with Alonzo Duralde, who wrote the book Have Yourself a Movie, Little Christmas. And we're going to talk about, funny enough, more Netflix. We're going to talk about the Netflixification and Hallmarkification of Christmas films. The good, the bad, the otherwise. And then we're also going to give you some fantastic recommendations for just Christmas films in general that people might have missed that are definitely worth your time. It's a very good episode, and I encourage you all to listen to it. And then we'll be taking a short little break after that episode and coming back for season 10. I've been doing this show for 10 fucking years, and episode 200. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming. We appreciate everyone listening. Jason, I appreciate you coming on.
We didn't even... Side note here, we didn't even get into the Netflixification. We didn't even get into the fact that they might own the longest running movie studio in America soon. And what that's going to do to our experiences.
Yeah, I've had to stop myself from getting in trouble on the work Slack because we have a movie channel, and there are just some hardcore people who don't like movie theaters, who don't understand physical media, who are just like, this is going to be good for us all. Everything's going to be available at our fingertips. And it's making me pull what little hair I have left out of my head.
Y'all going to burn your fingertips. You don't realize how hot that stove is. I hate it. We'll get into it more at some other juncture. But we're in hell. Yeah. And because we're in hell, I need all the support I can get. So go find me at those places. That's very funny.
Yeah. Nice segue. And you guys know where to find the podcast, and we'll talk to you next time. Shame time, shame place, Shameless Picture Show.
The Shameless Picture Show is a proud member of the Cinepunch Podcast Network. The show is recorded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and is hosted and produced by Michael Viers. The show is created by Michael Viers and Nick Richards. The Shameless Picture Show is edited by Austin Proctor of the Frightmares podcast. Amanda Viers is the show's graphic designer and a big help behind the scenes. Our theme music was composed by Austin Proctor with narration by Nick Richards. The end credit music you're currently enjoying was generously provided to us by the band 10 Speed. And an extra special thank you to all our Patreon supporters and to our generous sponsors. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and directly at Cinepunch.com.